Yo, I'm back. I'm back making content. You know why I'm back. AKAI has definitely dropped their new update, MPC3 software, right? They dropped it. I checked out Abe's video on it, and he definitely does a great review of the product, giving you a little bit of a hands-on view. But in this video, I kind of want to maybe talk about, maybe dive into some things that I didn't really see that was shown there, or I might have missed it. But there are some concerns and some things that I was curious about that I wasn't quite sure how it worked. But let's talk about it. Let's show you what we got, on the website. Yeah, you can sign up now for the beta program if you want to be a part of that. And I think it's a good idea. I think it's a no from gaming companies, because gaming companies do this all the time. They release betas all the time before they actually drop the product, which enables you an opportunity to refine it. Of course, you got closed betas, which are obviously released to those a few people, so they're definitely trying to get some bugs worked out, which is great. I'm pretty excited about it. I was kind of getting bored. I was having fun. I was creating, even though I was outside for a little bit. I had to go outside for the summer a little bit. But to see them sort of push this platform forward is good, and it didn't cannibalize any of the hardware. All the hardware is still usable with this, that's definitely a positive note right there. So as you can see on this website, they got hence main mode, linear arranger, track and pad mixer, XL, channel strip, Q, macro controls, enhanced drum grid. I'm just going to talk about some things that were very interesting to me. Like the first thing was, like, I noticed was the enhanced drum grid. And that drum grid reminds me of something I used to use a long time ago, but I don't anymore. Oh, Machine. Yeah. Machine. It reminds me of Machine. The fact that they got rid of that red bar on the top, and I lived with it. I didn't even really complain or had an issue about that red bar on the top of the screen, but it seems like they have eliminated that red bar and kind of gave a more aesthetic view of everything, which is good. A nice fresh coat of paint where it ain't when it comes to the layout of it. So I was impressed by a lot of the features, the enhanced drum grid, the enhanced channel strip, which gives you a little bit more data right there. I know on the current setup with the MPC2 software, you kind of had to go into edit mode to see settings about sins and things like that. So them bringing it more out there right in front, which is a positive thing. I'm pretty excited about that. And like I said, again, the drum grid, I'm a little curious about this. Here's another one thing that no one's talked about, or maybe I might have missed it. I didn't see it talked about on the website. How does the software look like? It's easy to compare it to Machine as far as this drum grid that they're talking about. But one of the things I'm a little curious about is basically how can you interact with this on a computer? Can you really click notes in as cleanly, as easily as you could in FL Studio? Because now they're starting to step into FL Studio territory with this arranger. I'm a little curious about that. I was really kind of confused about how the arranger worked, but after kind of thinking about it for a second, I was like, okay, this is how the arranger is going to work. So obviously, if you work with the MPC software, the MPC always works in scenes, right? There's always a scene there, and that scene has all your tracks on it. But what I didn't see really demonstrated, but maybe someone else did, but I didn't see this, was that how do you go from scene 1 and scene 2 and scene 3 and scene 4? In the previous workflow in 2.0 and above, 2.6, I don't even know where we're at right now. But the point is that you can put one sequence in front of the other in song mode, right? And that kind of brings me to the linear arranger. Now it looks more like a DAW, and I like how it looks. It's definitely easy on the eyes, and again, I'm a little curious about how it looks like on desktop. I'm primarily a power desktop user, and when I go to a cookup or to the gig, I like to have it all right there, but I'm very curious about how all that works. But when we're talking about the linear arranger, my thinking is that it works like this, and if you know, feel free to chime in the comments below. But as I understand it, you got your sequence, and then the arranger is just a view of all the tracks that are in that sequence. So if you got sequence 1, you hit arranger view on it or arrange mode on it, you then see it all for that sequence. So if you have a sequence of 8 bars, it's all right there. But then, like say, if I go to sequence 2 and you hit arranger view, you're going to see all the sequences, all the tracks that are inside of sequence 2. So the arranger that you see on sequence 2 is not the arranger that you see on sequence 1. So in order to have a big DAW view of the whole song, you're going to still have to go to song mode. Still go to song mode. Sequence all your sequences together into a big song. Export that song into another sequence on there. So let's say you're doing a sequence of 16 bars for part A and then a sequence of 16 bars for part B, and you do that 2 times. Follow me on the math here. So, 16, 16, 16, 16, that's 64. So now you got a 64 bar sequence that you can export onto another sequence on there that's combined, and then you get an arranger view of that whole thing. I hope you follow me on that, because that was kind of like, how am I arranging my songs now with this arranger? Because as I see in the MPC software, there's not a song mode like FL Studio. FL Studio has patterns, and then you got song mode. And there's only one song in song mode. So, my gears and kind of turn when I'm trying to convert and figure out. Same thing with Machine, with the scenes, which is fine, by the way. I used to have my head wrapped around it when I used to use it a lot, because I haven't used it in a while. It's hard for me to kind of regurgitate how it all works. So I'm very curious as to how this works. I'm very curious. I'm excited to find out, and I'm excited to demonstrate this and share this in content on my channel when I finally get a hold of this. But that was kind of one of the big brain twisters I kind of had about this platform was how did it all work? How did that all work? Of course, if we look on the website some more, we can see a list of other features like new main mode interface, linear arranger. We know that, full color track and pad mixer. One thing I didn't see, I'm curious about 8 sample layers. So in MPC 2, you have 4 layers of samples that you can assign to one pad. So they basically pulled a Yamaha motif to montage move, where you go from 4 layers to 8 layers on one sample. Now that can be very interesting, because now, as you know it, there are different modes that you can have per pad. You can have that pad cycle through all the samples that are assigned to that pad by sequence by every time you press that pad, or you can maybe trigger different pads per velocity on that. So now you have 8 options instead of 4, or you can have it randomly, which is crazy. You can have it randomly trigger 8 samples on one pad based upon the parameters. If I'm thinking right, again, I don't have this in front of my head, and I'm basing this off my previous experience with the 2.0 level software. So going forward into the 3.0 software, you can hit that pad at different velocities and trigger a different sample, which is great. Say if you got like a hi-hat sample and it has 8 variations in it, it can really create new opportunities to sequence things new. And plus, of course, you can note edit on the grid or pattern editor, depending how they do it now. I'm sure that pattern editor is still there somewhere. And then the things you can do per note in the editor, that's cool too. I didn't really see that too much, but I'm very curious about that. I'm excited. I'm glad to see that AKAI is moving this platform forward with the software. They're updating the software. They're sticking with it. They haven't cannibalized any other hardware as I've seen. And I can really appreciate that. I know that the time is coming to where we hit the limits with this, but this sort of reminds me of how PlayStation was. And of course I'm dating myself, but it kind of reminds me of how PlayStation was, because remember PlayStation was out for a long time, but then the software companies kept on pushing that hardware further and further and further. And so you had some of the craziest games, like the jump from Tekken to Tekken 3, and just the graphics and the thing they were able to just extract from the hardware through ingenuity. And I feel like that's what AKAI is doing with their stuff, because we're still in the realm of 2 gigs and 4 RAM, depending on the hardware that you have, but we're still getting new functionality like the stems, which is now on the hardware as well. So I'm very curious, and I'm excited and patiently waiting for my opportunity to get my hands on this and share my thoughts with you and share some tutorials on this and all that good stuff. So I like to hear what you guys think about it. I'm done talking about it for now. Yeah, this is cool. This is cool. I can appreciate this. I think this is cool, and I look forward to seeing what's next. Let me know what your thoughts are in the content below. Like, comment, subscribe for more videos like this. I'm back in the lab. I was outside, but I'm back. All right, peace.